Okay, once you've created your Tinkercad account and you've logged in, this will be your landing page. When you're first getting used to the software, a lot of times you'll see some tutorials on this page to coax you into learning a little bit more about the different tools and utilizing the various functions of Tinkercad. However, this will be your landing page once you've become accustomed to using the software directly. You have some options. You can always go in and look at more lessons, which later on in the course we'll talk more about, in tutorials. They do have a new circuit lab that's available in Tinkercad, which looks very engaging for students, especially once they're familiar with Tinkercad. I highly recommend looking at that beta version, but we're going to be starting off with 3D designs. And in order to get started, all you need to do is click Create New Design. Now, when I click Create New Design, what is going to happen is a new build platform is going to be created for my project. You can think of that as a file within this large folder, which is your landing page, of your various 3D designs. So while this loads and creates a new work plane, I see I have this gridded platform that I can build upon. I like to think of it like a Lego sheet that you start putting your foundation of, let's say, a house on a Lego build. I use that as an analogy just because that's where my mind goes automatically when I see this work plane. I think of a flat sheet that I can build a structure upon. And because I am in beta, up here on the left, you can choose the original version, but I like the new beta version because it allows me to use this cube and rotate my point of view a lot easier than the older version. Now, the older version has arrows going along the right, left, X and Y, X axis, up and down, the Y axis, and then what gets a little tricky on the old version is you have to rotate everything to use the Z axis. This, I can automatically rotate X, Y, and Z as I might view it. So it becomes a lot easier to manipulate. It becomes more user-friendly. Now, if you do have touchpad ability, I'm actually just touching my screen right now and moving the build plane around without using that box, but you can see the box is still rotating with the build plane. And so I like to use both, actually. I can actually zoom in and out with my fingers using the touch screen, or I can use the regular buttons here on the page as well, and that'll allow me to zoom in and out too. Now, what I'm going to do here in just a minute is bring in a shape. So the first thing we've done here is we've created a new build plane and work plane, and now we are going to add in some shapes. So placing shapes is the first thing you want to be able to do. All you do is you come over here to the right-hand menu, and in the right-hand menu you can choose many different shapes, and you can also choose things like text, symbols, connectors, and connectors are just structures that help you bring two different shapes together. So what I'm going to do, though, just to get started, I'm going to use my basic shapes and I'm going to drag in a box, if it lets me. I'm going to refresh the page real quick. And what I am going to do is drag in a box, and I'm going to have two different shapes. I'm going to do a few different things. So if I drag in this box and drop it, so it's just a drag and drop. If I want, I can make them bigger using this manual tool, which is a little easier than just dragging the edges sometimes, and it actually gives you the measurement that you're looking for, which makes it a little bit easier to manipulate. I'm going to go and make it a little taller, not that much taller, and I am going to get the length a little bigger as well. I'm going to have the length almost to be close to a cube as I can. And I guess I'm going to downsize these to get closer to 50, so I have a pretty close to a cube, or 54.01, if I can match those. And that's what's really nice about these tools. They allow you to get precise measurements, especially if you were 3D printing. So now I have a perfect cube, and it's big enough to where we can see it and fully understand what we're dealing with here. So this is just a cube. And if I were to download that, I could print a solid cube. No big deal. That doesn't sound very innovative or interesting to me, so I doubt it would be to students either. But let's say I wanted to make something that had dimension and internal structure. I'd first have to have a hole or an opening. So what I can do after I've adjusted my size, I can bring in another box or another cylinder. But if I wanted to stay pretty close to the same size of what I was dealing with, I could just Control-C, Control-V the structure, and then I just copy and pasted the same exact shape on the screen. Now I could have drug in another shape and resized it and done all of that, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this just a little bit smaller, 42.61 in this case, and I'm going to leave the height a little bit longer, and I'll show you why in just a second. Because what I actually want to do is I want to drop this down inside of this other structure, and I want to make this smaller structure a hole. So I just changed that solid structure into a hole here. Now I could have brought in a hole, but in this case I just changed one of my shapes to a hole. Now if I look at this from above, you might be able to kind of see what I'm trying to accomplish here. In this case, I want to actually drag my whole structure to where it's roughly in the middle of that box. And then you can see I have a perfect square opening in my box and a hollow structure. Now if I wanted the box to have a bottom, all I would do is lift that whole rectangle cube upward. And if I did that, then indeed, and if you make a mistake that you don't like, that's a good thing to learn right now, is this undo button is my saving grace. You can do undo and redo it a couple times. But I'm going to leave that going all the way through. And I'm going to show one more tool. Right now, these are still two different shapes. I'm going to show you how to combine them, because when you're working on a more complicated project, as you go along, you're going to want to group your shapes so that you don't accidentally resize one shape and not the other, or move one without the other moving with it. So if I highlight that entire structure, and then I go over here to this little symbol, you can see how those two are separate and these two are combined in symbolism. I'm going to click Group. Now what that did is it just combined those two structures. And what that looks like from above now, now I have just one shape, beautifully and symmetrically created without having that really awkward rectangle sticking out of my box from both ends. Now I have just this perfect shape that I can then move on and create other shapes with. So if you were creating rooms, I could actually just say, okay, that's one room. I'm going to create another room. I'm going to copy and paste a new room. And so now I've created a shape that I can copy and paste, and I could even combine walls, and I could make one room bigger than another if I really wanted to push that out. Now you can really see how the functionality of bringing these shapes together, grouping and ungrouping them, can help you create more complex structures. Now if I built the ground floor, I can imagine putting a roof on with a triangle. You see a roof function here, but right now those two shapes are separate. I'm going to go ahead and combine these again. So I'm going to select them both. I'm going to group those. Now I can, I can move that structure around, get it to where I want it. And let's say I wanted to build down. Let's say I wanted to copy that structure, bring it down here next to this structure. And let's say I wanted to just invert them, where I wanted to do that. And then I could have different rooms. And now you can see I almost have a floor plan for a house, and that took me, just a couple minutes in Tinkercad. So if I didn't like the way they were, I would just select them, and I could group, or I could separate them and ungroup them and delete the ones I didn't want. But that's the basic placing, adjusting, and combining functions in Tinkercad.